All right, here now with more. Senior counselor to President Trump, Kellyanne Conway, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, and Fox News contributor Ari Fleischer. You know, you look at Kathy Hochul, for example, and then you look at the statistics, the murder rate, the crime rate, the arson rate, the burglary rate, and what part of what's happening in her state is she not understanding, Kellyanne?
Sure. I think her blunder on the debate stage was akin to Terry McAuliffe's a year ago when he said, I'm going to make sure parents don't have a say in their child's education, and he lost. And this is, for Kathy Hochul to not realize that not only is reality, we see it's an occupational hazard to use the subway. We see that people are walking down the street being randomly assaulted and worse. But also, when it comes to crime, perception is reality. If the people of New York don't feel safe, and so many of them are telling us they don't feel safe, that's enough for a governor to take action. But Lee Zeldin's run a masterful campaign by putting crime front and center and public safety. And of course, the Democrats cannot walk back, defund the police. Those are the three most poisonous words said by a political party in quite some time, Sean. They can't walk it back. And let me say this. It's not just in New York, and it's not just in our major cities, which are run by Democrats, where the rates of crime are going up. It really is everywhere. If people feel insecure and unsafe, if this election is about everyday affordability, but it's also about physical security, border security, national security, health security, economic security, if it's about all of that, then of course that's going to help the party that is willing to go out there and say no cashless bail. We are here to punish criminals, not to punish the victims. And people right now in New York, we just released a poll where Hochul's only up 1 point. Both she and Lee Zeldin are 46, 45, under 50%. And he's really closing the gap because he has put crime front and center. But let's also not forget, Sean, that unfortunately the Zeldin family knows crime very personally. He was attacked on the stage by a crazy person with a weapon. And then his 2 teenage daughters were home doing their homework, and somebody was on his porch. So this is very personal to many folks. 1994, top 2 issues, crime and the economy. We had the contract with America, but now those 2 issues are so much more personal and front and center. And you have an entire Democratic Party telling the country, don't believe what you see, believe what I say. That's why voters are rejecting that.
You know, Governor Huckabee, you look at things. Their economic policies caused the 40-year high of inflation. Their decision not to produce energy domestically, that has caused the price of gasoline to soar as high as it is. And by the way, wait till people get their heating bills this winter. They went with open borders and abandoned the policies of Donald Trump that were working. They're the ones that want a woke education versus, you know, the old-fashioned reading, writing, math, and history education. They're the ones that want defund, dismantle, and no bail laws. They have made decisions, and the consequences are now evident to everybody. In 8 days, the American people get to vote on whether they like these policies or don't like these policies. Are you better off than you were, what, 20 months ago, 21 months ago? I think the answer is overwhelmingly no. I don't think they have anything successful to run on, and I don't see a lot of success for them in this midterm election.
I think what you just said is exactly right. I think it's interesting that their strategy right now is to bring Obama out of mothballs. But, you know, I'm going to say something that you'll probably disagree with, Sean. But I kind of find it entertaining that Obama is back on the stage. Now, he's blowing smoke out of both nostrils, both ears, and the rest of the parts of his body. And he's telling a bunch of stuff that isn't true, like we're going to kill Social Security and Medicare. Total nonsense. But I will say this. It was kind of entertaining to watch him because at least he's somewhat funny and he can put a whole sentence together. And if you look across the Democrat spectrum, they've got a bunch of candidates
Governor,
that are incoherent.
That's a pretty high bar. He could actually put a sentence together. That's an amazing accomplishment.
And Sean, when he's finished with his speech, he doesn't shake hands with the ghost, and he doesn't wander around the stage trying to figure out how the heck do I leave here. So, yeah, if I were a Democrat running, I'd bring Obama in, too, because it's all they got.
Well, I don't think that's bad advice, Ari Fleischer. I'm not sure that that's going to actually resonate. Look, Americans, if we're going to break it down simply, they vote for peace, they vote for prosperity. I can't think of a single policy Democrats and Joe Biden have implemented that have benefited the American people, Ari Fleischer. And to me, it's that simple, it's that fundamental, it's that basic.
Well, and the other big fundamental simple thing is the first midterm election of a president's time in office is always a course correction. But this year, Sean, it looks like it really is a genuine wave. And the way I look at it, if the Democrats had a perfect night, they could win 54 seats in the Senate. They'd have to knock off the Republicans in Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. I think Republicans are going to hold all 4 of those seats now. That's pretty clear. Republicans on a perfect wave night could win 56 seats. A week ago, I would have told you I don't see it happening. I don't see 56. Now I can tell you, Sean, I think there's about a 25% chance the wave is big enough Republicans are going to end up with 56 seats. That's New Hampshire, that's Georgia, that's Nevada, that's Arizona, Colorado, and Washington State. Wow. That's what happens in a wave. People wake up shocked. They just didn't see it coming. But in 2014, the second midterm of Obama, Republicans gained 9 seats in the Senate. And no one saw that coming either. That's the thing about a wave election. You don't know it until you're soaked, you're under it, and then the other party is jubilant. That is the possibility a week from tomorrow.
That may be a pretty happy guy a week from tomorrow if that, in fact, happens. Kellyanne, what do you see happening?
Oh, it's going to be a big Republican night. I mean, the Democrats aren't even trying to solve the problem, Sean. They're still arguing with the public about what the problems are. But I think the Obama question is a really important one. Vintage Obama was about hope and change. But now he's out on a recovery and rescue mission. And he seems like he has a boulder on his shoulder, you know, peddling anger and lying about the Republicans. And may I just remind everybody of Obama's record when he's not on the ballot. He's hardly the Mariano Rivera, the closer for these midterm elections. On his watch over 8 years, the Democrats lost 12 governor seats, went from 28 to 16. They lost 9 Senate seats. They lost 950 state legislative seats. And they went from 254 to 196 in the House, 62 seats lost in the House. So his batting average, if you will, is not so great when he's not on the ballot. And look, I also think Obama's message is tone deaf. He did a really good thing a couple weeks ago on a podcast. He said, hey, stop talking about all these other issues, start talking about the economy. And then he goes out and he talks about everything but the economy. But I'm with Ari on this. I actually make another prediction. I don't think a single Republican House or Senate incumbent will lose. There are a couple who are embattled right now. I think they'll be dragged across the finish line. In 2020, not a single House Republican incumbent lost. We turned 15 seats from blue to red. Every one of those seats was taken by a woman, a veteran, or a candidate of color, or some combination thereof. We've recruited such unbelievably diverse candidates this time in the Republican Party, and they're there, and now the party's investing in them. 6-digit investment in some of these congressional districts, Sean and gentlemen, where Biden carried those districts by 20 points or so, double digits, 2 short years ago. It's a big night.
I am impressed that you remembered every single election post-Obama. And you're right, he did have a terrible track record in terms of people that he endorsed over time. Governor Huckabee, besides a huge victory that we're both expecting in the great state of Arkansas and a new governor there, what do you see happening a week from tomorrow night?
I think Ari has nailed it pretty well. And I want to make sure you understand, I didn't say Obama was effective. I just said he was entertaining. There's a big difference. And I hope he continues to go out there because he reminds everybody that his policies and the things that he did set up for the Republicans to take power in 2016. And he may remind them that maybe it's time to go back to the Republicans yet again. I think that's what we're going to see. And I would second the motion to what Ari had to say, and I think he may be spot on.
I hope Ari is. Ari, if you're right, you're going to get the gold star. You get the last word.
Well, the other thing about President Obama, because I just can't resist, remember, he endorsed Hillary when he was a sitting president. And how did that work out? So when he was at the height of his power, an incumbent in office, he played an active role campaigning for and hoping for Hillary Clinton, and Donald Trump won. So, you know, endorsements really don't mean much in the modern political era. What matters are the fundamentals. That's the economy, that's crime, that's inflation, and it's the wave. Wave elections are rare, but when they hit, they're big, and that's what we're heading into, Sean.
I think we are, too. I hope we're all right. All right, thank you all. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.